I met my friend Helton Pereira a few weeks ago on the phone. We met through a friend of a friend of an acquaintance of a former coworker. Regardless of how we met, we hit it off. We have similar interests, similar passions. Helton hosts the First Things First podcast and wrote a book called The First Things First, where he focuses on faith, family, fitness, and firefighting. Join us today as we talk about all of those things and so much more on Called to Lead. Hello, welcome once again to the Called to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Colby Rich. With me today, my great pleasure to have my friend Helton Pereira with me today, all the way from Virginia. Helton is a firefighter. He's a husband, a father. He is the host of the First Things First podcast, author of a book by the same name. We're going to get into all those things today and so much more. Helton, thank you for being here today. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, Colby. Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to chat it up with you here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I finished up the book this week and just really excited to have you on and to talk about this. And we got together, the last few weeks through not even mutual friends who knew friends, who knew friends, who knew friends, I think. And got together and talking and just realized that our paths are very similar, kind of parallel paths in the fire service and in our ministry life and family life and all those things. We hit it off really quickly. So I'm happy to have you on, excited about this. Why don't you just share a little bit, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, definitely. So for you guys that don't know me, my name is Helton Pereira. I was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Was there until about 15. Then our family moved here to America. That's where I met my beautiful wife and have 3 children. Been married for about 16 years, almost 17. And I have a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So I'm the perfect dad. Can't remember their ages, but 2 girls, 1 boy. My boy is the promise of God. When my wife and I were, we had our 2 girls, and we always just wanted the perfect two kids, and we're done. But as a man, as a firefighter, you always want your boy, and so I was like, well, it's good. God's given us 2 beautiful, healthy girls, so I'm done. And man, one day I am sitting at church, like it's the middle of worship, and I heard the voice of God as clear as day, like, you're going to have another kid and it's going to be a son. And so, man, I brought that to my wife, and like, God just blessed us with our little boy, and he's awesome. The girls are awesome, and super, super blessed to have the family that I have. And we live right here in Virginia. We're about 30 to 35 miles south of DC. A great little place here. We got a pond in the front yard where the boys in the neighborhood, and my boy and the girls, they go fishing. It's like except for the white picket fence, it's the perfect life. Super blessed to be here. And I went to college here right down the road, George Mason University. And then while in college, that's when I found out the fire service and joined a volunteer firehouse and started applying to fire departments. And that's how kind of like the story began. And so we attend church here, a great church where our kids, man, the kids love the kids ministries, the youth ministry. They are, involved in church. They're serving. It's really cool now that we are at an age where we have normally 2 services on Sunday morning. So we attend a church and then we serve one. And so now everybody's serving. For many years, I would be getting up early, going to serve in the worship ministry. And then they started coming with me because they love going to hang out at church. And now they're at a point where my wife and I are serving in church and they are serving as well. The youth ministry a lot of times serves in the kids ministry. So man, the whole family, like Sunday is a family affair where everybody's at church for multiple services. And we are right now, we're a set up and tear down church. We don't have our church building yet. So a lot of long Sundays for us, but man, we love it. And, during the week too, we just finished up 21 days of prayer at church that actually the kids made every single one of them. Me, obviously, because of work, I couldn't make all of them, but the kids made all of them. There were a couple of them that my wife and I traded to make sure that the kids all got there. But man, it was awesome. And they involved in youth ministry. They're involved in the kids ministry. My wife and I lead small groups for marriage, and I do men's ministry. She does women's ministry. Man, our life pretty much revolves around church, and yeah, man, we love it. So it's church, family, and then the fire service is kind of who I am.
Well, I knew your family's really involved in church, and that's not a new thing, right? That was even growing up in Brazil that was that way. Kind of tell us about that and how you came to faith in Christ.
Man, I came to faith before I was out of the womb. Thank goodness I have a super blessed background. My family all were basically in church. I know my grandparents, and I think even great grandparents. For as long as I know, they've all have been believers and in church and serving. My family in Brazil, like quite literally physically built the church that we were members of for many years. One of my great uncles was a lead pastor there for many years. He was my grandmother's brother on my dad's side, and my grandfather on my dad's side. My family owned a construction business, so for many years, like they were literally, building the church. My mom was involved in crusades, and she would translate for missionaries that would come to Brazil. So she would do that. She would translate and preach. My grandfather on my mom's side was a deacon for his church for many years. So I just grew up going to church, man. I grew up going to Bible school, to being in the kids choir, to going to Bible school and every Sunday morning. Grew up in youth ministries. Eventually, when I turned like 13, 14, I joined the worship team, and I was the kid that like raised my hand every Sunday. Like the pastor would make a call. I was like, "Who wants to accept Jesus?" Like, I want to go to heaven like again. So I remember like multiple times going down to the front, getting the tracks and the no believer books. And I loved sharing that. I love sharing the gospel with friends. I was just that kid, man. I was born and raised in church, and super blessed to again have that upbringing. And I believe that the life that I live today is not just my faith. It's the faith of my parents, my grandparents. But not only that, man, it's the prayers. It's the prayers that my parents prayed. It's the prayers that my grandparents prayed. For me over years and years and years. Some of the things that have happened, some of the things that I'm sure still will happen are going to be answers to prayers that my parents and grandparents prayed. I just say that to say, man, pray over your kids, man. Pray
Hmm.
over your kids' kids. Like I do that already for my kids who are not even grown-ups. They're still kids, and I'm praying for them. I'm praying for their husbands and their wives and their
Hmm.
their kids that, man, for generations I'm just making deposits, over their lives, because I know that my parents and grandparents did that for me. And I think that that's just something that we don't think about, so your prayers are powerful, man. And I'm living proof of that. God's grace in my life and mercy is definitely not just because of me, but because of my parents and my upbringing.
Yeah, scripture promises us that the prayer of a righteous man is powerful and effective. And like you said, I think you're living proof. I know I'm living proof of that too, with having godly parents who prayed for me, and especially times when I wasn't living the way God wanted me to, and they still prayed anyway. And I'm sure there was some. I know celebrating in heaven, but I'm pretty sure celebrating in their house too when I finally came back to the Lord. Yeah, so man, that's great. So you came to the States as a teenager. Kind of walk us through that. Y'all came from Brazil to the United States. What led to that, and what was that transition like?
Yeah. So as I was saying, my mother was she was an English teacher by trade. So she did missions, and she did translating for a lot of missionaries. So she taught English for many years of her life. And I had no idea what moving to America would be like. I had no idea if we ever would do that. As a matter of fact, she failed me in English multiple times because I just either didn't show up to class, or because I didn't do homework. She I had no idea that I would ever move to America. It was never in our radar. As a matter of fact, at the time that we moved here, it only took 3 months for us for my parents to decide to move, to us being here in America. Um, it was around 2001 that we moved, and everything lined up right. God opened all the doors, shut all the doors that had to be shut, and we sold our house, sold our cars, packed everything, and then moved to America in 3 months. And man, I had no idea what it would be like to live here. As I said, I failed English multiple times, because I was like, I'm never going to need to use this. Like, why do I need to learn English? Just a young kid thinking that I knew everything. But, luckily, I knew English before I came here. I just didn't speak it fluently. I'm sure you can pick up my accent here and there, even though I've been living here for over 20 years. It still comes out every once in a
It's
while.
good. It's good.
Yeah, my kids like to make fun of me when I say the words the wrong way. But yeah, man, we moved here, and so we moved right before 9/11. So it was March of 2001. We applied for to become residents and moved. And so 9/11 happens, and now obviously everything halts. Like the approval process, the process to go through immigration, everything halts because everybody obviously wants to make sure they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's. And man, now we are like in limbo for like 4 to 5 years, to kind of figure out like, are we going to be approved? Are we not going to be approved? Are we going to have to move back? And so that's like 4 to 5 years that you can't leave. You can't go back home. You're now in America asking for residency, and but you can't go back home because your visa is, you're in a in between visas technically.
Mm.
And so finally everything goes through, and we become residents, and years later we all become citizens. And man, like it was new. I was 15 years old. I was still a kid. I'm sure that for my parents it was very hard, but for me everything was just cool and exciting. I get to go to high school in America. I got to see and live everything that I used to watch in the Hollywood movies as a kid. So it was cool. It was different. And then I applied to college, started going to college, and just different, man. A very like quite literally culture shock because
Mhm.
as a kid I had no idea what real America was like other than what I saw in the movie. I thought everything was like having McAllister lived in Home Alone, But other than that, I just, just learning, making new friends. One thing that I had no idea, I just thought there was a bunch of white people everywhere. I had no idea how culturally diverse America was before moving here. So I got to live that and learn that and learn. I got to develop my Spanish as well. Brazil is mainly Portuguese is the main language, but I was also taking English and Spanish lessons, so I got to use a lot of my Spanish and develop that. Made good friends in high school. I got to, you know, play football in high school, which was always a dream of mine. But of course, they said you're from Brazil, you play soccer, you're going to be the kicker. So I was the kicker for my high school football team, and yeah, man, it was a great uh, childhood, or I guess in my case, adolescence, where I had to grow up in a completely different place, make new friends, and it was definitely very foundational for me moving to America.
So you're in the States and you're trying to figure out what to do. And I remember us talking before how you were in college and then fell into firefighting. So kind of walk us through that because that's a big part of your life now too. Anybody who's a firefighter, that's a big part of their life. So walk us through how that happened, how you ended up in the fire service.
Yeah, so my parents moved to America because they want us to give us a good education. Everybody knows that America has great schools, great colleges, great medical programs. That was actually one of the things that I had in mind. I was going to come here, go to college, get my medical degree, and then go back home and be a doctor in Brazil. That was kind of like the dream. But I was in college and I started volunteering with the local firehouse because I wanted to add something to my resume. I wanted to build something up for the time that I was ready to apply for medical school, that I could have something that's saying, hey, look at all the extra stuff that he's doing outside. So I'm volunteering. I'm just an EMT at that time, and I had to take a couple of classes that had to do with fire. I had a class that was fire extinguishers class. And man, I just fell in love with it. I took that class. I signed up for volunteer fire school, and then the next thing you know, I was like, man, I can do this for a career. And so I applied to get hired, and I got hired, and now it's nearly 18 years later, and here I am still, loving the fire service, and in the fire service. I never thought that I would do this, and I don't have anybody in my family that's a firefighter. I don't have anybody that has ever done this as a career. I think that my mom has maybe a cousin back home who joined the fire service, but I didn't even know that until many, many years after I was already doing this. So I tell people that I didn't find the job found me, and I'm super blessed to have gotten in the time that I did, because when I applied, it was back in 2008, and if you remember 2008, 2009, it was a recession year for us here,
Mhm.
and people are getting let go, and fire departments are actually furloughing people back then. And I got lucky enough and blessed enough to land the job on a great department, man. I as I said, I worked right outside of DC, some really good fire departments around here, and I got hired, which was a huge blessing.
So you're in the fire service for a while, and I want to talk a little bit about your podcast and the book. But I know one of the things that led to that, and I want you to tell me the other things that led to that. But I know one thing that led to those was you kind of went through a time of maybe burnout or questioning if you should still be doing this or why are you doing it. Kind of talk us through that. How that whole just kind of questioning things ended up leading you to find your passion, how you did that, how you refound that passion for the fire service and for serving others, and then how that transition kind of led to the podcast and the book.
As I shared with you earlier that I had no idea what moving to America would be like, I had no idea what joining the fire service would be like. I never had any friends who were firefighters. I never grew up thinking about being a fireman. I barely even looked into really what I had to do to be a fireman other than I started applying, so I didn't know what firefighters dealt with on a daily basis. I didn't know what firefighters dealt with years into the job. I didn't know what having a career like this would do to your physical, mental, and spiritual mindset. So I just went in, and now I'm in the fire service. I'm running calls. I'm taking classes. I'm trying to be the best fireman that I can. And it's about 10 to 15 years in that now I am tired. I'm overweight. I am stressed. I'm not sleeping. I'm not putting my family first. My wife is I'm not taking care of her the way I should be. I'm not taking care of my kids the way I should be. They are definitely not at the front of my mind, and I put the job first in certain aspects. And I am very lucky and blessed to say that nothing ever happened to me. I never stepped out on my wife. I never had to deal with any kind of substance abuse. I never had anxiety or depression during that time. But I had a wake up call that I needed to change something before those things were going to happen. And I also noticed that there were people around me that were unfortunately dealing with consequences of their actions. I had friends who were getting divorced. I had friends who were dealing with substance abuse. I had friends who were severely depressed and dealing with anxiety. I had friends who lost their lives to suicide. I had friends who lost their life because of medical condition that obviously had to do with the job. And so combining my personal experience with seeing what was happening around me, I was like, man, this job is killing us. And some of these people were very close to me. Some of these people were in recruit school with me. They started the fire service with me, and now they're not finishing their fire service with me. And so I said, man, I got to do something because I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to my family. I don't want that to happen to my life. And so I just had to make a change. The first change that I had to make was first to change my perspective, because we easily can get burned out with the job. This is the best job in the world. I truly believe it. I still say that this is the best job in the world, but it's a tough job, man. It takes sometimes it can take years from your life physically, mentally. And so you have to know how to put the things in the right order. Hence the name of the book and the podcast, Put the First Things First. And I didn't have that. I had put the job first ahead of a lot of times, from picking up overtime to taking extra classes to picking up so many projects to do that I forgot that I had a wife and kids at home that I had to be present for, that I had to be taken care of. There were times that I forgot to take care of myself. We are there to serve people, and if I'm not able to take care of them and serve them, I have to take care of myself first as well, like physically, mentally, and spiritually, for me to be able to be good enough at my job to do those things. So when those things were going on in my life, I had to change my perspective and say, we don't just fall out of love with what we're doing. We don't just fall out of love with our spouses. Like there are little things that are happening along the way that we have to change in order for us to be able to fall in love with the job again, for us to fall in love with the person that we married. I thought about that together because, as I mentioned earlier, my wife and I do a lot of marriage ministry. We do small groups. I kind of mirrored my love for the fire department as my love for my wife. And as I said, thank goodness I never fell out of love with her. So I just knew what are the things that I'm doing on a daily basis that makes me stay in love with my wife to make me still be in love with the fire service. As I said, I was dealing with some of that, and I said, if I'm dealing with this stuff, there's the guys and girls that are around me that are dealing with these other things too. Maybe they can learn some of these things that I'm applying in my life to apply to their lives, and hopefully it makes them improve or gets them to a better place. And so I just had to put the first things first, which for me was obviously my faith, my relationship with God, and then my family, my wife and kids. I had to take care of myself, my fitness, and then the fire service was last. I had to learn to put the fire service last. And so I focused on my relationship with God, reading the Bible, praying more, spending quiet time with God. My service at church, my service with the small groups, the ministries that we're involved in. I had to learn how to to prioritize that. And even sometimes I had to take some of those responsibilities away so I could then give time for my wife and kids. Man, I used to pick up a lot of overtime, man, anytime I could, because I am super blessed to have had my wife at home for many, many years of our children's upbringing. And because she was at home, I had to, make up that difference in her income. And so anytime there was overtime available, I was working, and anytime there was sign up, I was working. And I forgot that yes, I'm working to make more money to make overtime and keep her at home. But what sense that it makes no sense for me to be working so much overtime that now I don't have any time to spend with her and the kids.
Mhm.
So I had to learn how to manage that and how to manage not wanting to take every class that comes up available, because that's what we do, right? We love taking classes. We love adding certifications to our portfolio and adding letters to the end of our name. And so I just had to learn how to balance all that out, and again put the right things in the right order. Then once I figured out the God piece, the family piece, and the taking care of myself piece, the fire service, the job just became easy. We sometimes want to put the job first because it makes sense. Like what we do is important. The skills that we need to do the job is important, but none of that matters if home is not okay. None of that matters if I'm not okay. And so it was just that, man. It was just learning how to prioritize and put the right things in the right order. And so I started writing. At first, it was kind of a therapeutic thing where I just had to write notes down for myself and something that I wanted to pass on to other people. And eventually that turned into the idea of writing the book. And because I wanted to again share that with people, because I was having a lot of conversations about marriage, about fitness, about their family life, about their work ethic, and prioritizing the right things with people on an individual basis. People would call me, would text me, or we just have a conversation at the kitchen table. And I started having a lot of those conversations, man, and I was just like, man, this is definitely a problem. If these many people are coming to me and asking these questions, there's got to be more people out there that want to have these conversations, and maybe they don't have somebody to go to. And so the book was born out of that. I share a lot of my stories of what I have done, what happened to me in the fire service, what I have done to overcome those things. Because if I can help somebody avoid going through something that I went through, and it makes them be successful, it makes them not have to go through a hard time, I think that it's a well worthy cause to have taken the time to write the book. And the podcast was just a place where I could have conversations with people, just like we're having here, for people to share their stories with me, for me to share my stories with them, because I think there's power in testimony, right? In sharing what we have
Mhm.
gone through, and so people can see what he has done in my life, and what he's able to do for somebody with their story to what they're going through. And so that's kind of how those two things were born.
Well, I know in the book, kind of your whole theme, you have those 4 principles, those 4 priorities, and for the people watching on YouTube where you can see, it's on your shirt, right? You got it there, and it's on the front cover of the book. When you check it out, it's right there on the front cover, and so, we just kinda wanna walk through those 4 things. So your first priority that you mentioned there is faith. So we've talked a little bit about that, about growing up in a Christian family, and how you guys are continuing that with you and your wife, with your kids, continue to serve in church and serve in ministry. How important has that been in life, but how important has that been in the fire service, you think? And what are some of the challenges that come along with being a Christian in this profession? And maybe the blessings of being a Christian in this profession too, because there's both.
Oh, definitely, man. Being a Christian, I think it's foundational for everything that I do in my life. I believe that my purpose in life is to serve God and serve people. And I don't think that there's a better profession that I get to do that I get to combine the two things and do that. Because at the end of the day, that's what we show up to do in the fire service, right? Is to serve people. And if I can serve God through my job, through serving people, man, I think I just won the lottery with that one. As I said, I didn't find the job found me. So it was a huge blessing to be able to do what I do. And I truly believe that everybody has a calling in their lives. And I believe that the people that are in the fire service have a calling in their life through the fire service. To me, it just has helped me so much. First of all, I'm super blessed to have been picked out of the at the time thousands of people that were applying for the job. As I shared earlier, man, back in 2008, 2009, it was hard to get a job, and there are thousands of people applying. And man, people are going to hate me for this, but I got a job within 6 months of trying to get hired, Colby. Like people didn't do that back then, like people sometimes were going through multiple rounds of hiring. Sometimes people were flying across the country to try to get a job somewhere. And so I was super blessed to just literally get a job right down the road from where I grew up and lived, with a great fire department, great firehouses, great rigs. I mean, super blessed. And so I think that the favor of God already helped me, just to get on the job first. The next thing that obviously faith is important is just structuring my family. I truly believe that marriage is God ordained, and it's been a huge blessing in my life. Most importantly, because my wife is so much smarter than me, and I think that without her, I'd be lost. My wife is a huge blessing in my life. She's the wisest woman I have ever met. My wife and I met at work. She was a Christian, but she wasn't every weekend. She wouldn't go to church every weekend. She'd go on holidays and things like that. But man, when we started going to church together, the first thing that I noticed is I was in fire school, in volunteer fire school when we first met. And so we used to go to a college ministry small group together. And I said, hey, like I'm going to have to start going to fire school on Thursday nights. So you don't have to come to the college group anymore. She's like, what are you talking about? I love this thing. I'm not doing this for you. And man,
Mhm.
that right there. I knew her heart, and I knew that that's what she wanted to do. And I knew that she was the one. So, a couple years later, I graduated fire school, and I married her, because when God gives you a good woman like that, you gotta commit. And so
Snatch him up.
she has been my rock, my foundation. There's a reason why when Adam was in the garden alone, God gave her a helper, and she's my helper, man. She's my rock. She is my everything. She's a great mother to our children. She raises them in a way that I could have never imagined. So just again, God blessing me with her to be able to go through and deal through everything that I deal with in the fire service, I think is just a huge blessing, just to have that rock and that foundation next to me. Because as you can imagine, the kind of stuff that we go through, the kind of stresses that we have to deal with in the job, and the things that we have to see. In all honesty, Colby, I don't know how people do it without faith. I don't know how people go through without believing there's something bigger than them. So just the sadness that we get to witness sometimes, the horrific things that we get to witness. I don't know how somebody who doesn't believe in God can deal with that. And I know that the question is, okay, well, if God was so good, how come he allows these things to happen? Man, if God is so good, can you imagine if God wasn't real, and the kind of atrocities that could happen, even more than what we already see? So, but there's also other sides of, we get to see God's grace, and even in what we do too. Like sometimes we see some terrible accidents, and people are like, man, how are you walking after you just left that car? Or how are you still talking to me after everything that I just, witnessed? And so it's amazing to be able to have something to cling to. And even in times of, that we don't know what to do, like that's the only thing there's been plenty of times, whether it's on the back of a medic unit, or it's on the side of a highway, or in the scene of a fire, that I have prayed, man. I was like, God, I don't know what to do here, but lead me, guide me. What is it that you want me to do? And more importantly, man, I have prayed so much at the kitchen table, on the tailboard, when I get a phone call late at night from somebody that is struggling with something. Like those are really the time that I lean on God to have those tough conversations with firefighters that are needing the help. I believe, and we've talked about this, I believe that the fire service is a calling. I believe that there's a ministry in the fire service. And I don't know how I would still be in the fire service nearly 18 years without having faith in God to lead me through this, to walk me through this. I'm not perfect, man. I'm still trying to figure things out, both in the job and both in my faith. It's a process of maturing. And man, if it wasn't for God to walk me through, and sometimes quite literally hold my hand to walk some of the difficult things that I have walked through, I don't know where I would be. And so I will just encourage somebody that's listening to this, that either is questioning, or doesn't know, or still not strong enough in your faith. Man, just put your faith in Jesus, man. Like he has walked me through so much that I had no idea how to deal with. From not having enough money on the bank to all of a sudden, now there's a couple extra dollar signs on there, to to not knowing where the next answer is going to come when you're dealing with something at work, or to what's going to happen next to a patient that you had zero hope for. All those things have come from just trusting in God and leaning on Him for understanding and patience and kindness and grace. And as you said, I don't have the answer. I don't know how to answer the question of like how do we walk through this, because it's tough, right? Our job, our field is a field that unfortunately has a lot of people that are cynic, or that don't believe, and sometimes they have a reason to. As I just said, like how can we see so much destruction and despair and with what we do that could cause somebody to not believe or lose faith in who God is. But man, it's tough to navigate that, and I think that it's not about shouting and telling people, like you should believe in God. It's not like the sidewalk preachers mentality, although I believe that there's a time and a place for that. But I don't think that the fire service is really a place. At least is not how I do it. I just try to be one of the guys, a normal guy who loves God and loves people. That's like my way of living the Christian life in the fire service, which I don't think it would be different anywhere else. Whether it's at a firehouse, whether it's at the soccer field, whether it's at a ice cream parlor and you're serving ice cream, just who you are as a person. And I think that if you just do those two things, love God and love people, try to find opportunities to then, if somebody sees who you are and you have that love and that compassion for people, people are going to approach you and ask you. And then that's when you have the chance to share your beliefs. And so that's just what I try to do. I just try to love God, love people, find opportunities to serve. And when I don't have the answers, I just lean on God to help me walk through it.
Yeah, I remember when I started in the fire service, I hadn't been at my department very long, but there was a captain that came to me and he knew that that church was a big focus, right? Because I've been a pastor for a long time before I was a firefighter, and that's all I'd done. And so he came to me, he's like, "Son, you're gonna have to pick between these two things. You can't be. What's more important to you, the church or the fire department?" And I was like, I mean, the church is not my only connection to God, but it is what I feel called to do too. So if it's choosing between church or this, your church is going to win, like, and he's like, man, you got to remember what pays your bills. Remember what, and I remember thinking, is this what everybody's like around here? Like, like, am I the only one that thinks faith is more important, and the cool thing, and I share about this one in my book, was that there was a time not too long ago. I mean, that was 14 or 15 years ago, where that guy came to me and asked me, he was having some issues with family stuff, pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, I need you to pray for me with for these things." Man, that was a 15-year testimony, of before he came and asked that, and so we don't always see the fruit. And I'm just glad I got to see it. We don't always get to see it at all. Sometimes we never see the fruit of those investments that we make in our faith and stuff and in other people. But the few times we do, it makes it worthwhile, and it makes you remember that God's the one in charge, not us. And that's one of the things I think that helps with dealing with all the stuff that we see, the trauma and the tragedy that we see. And that's what I tell new guys or people when I'm doing mental health things with people, like, 'cause I do the peer support stuff too. But, like, we wanna take on so much responsibility for the outcome of the patient or the outcome of the house fire, whatever it is. We're like, "Well, if I could have done more, if I could have" listen, we didn't cause the problem. We're there to help. We got called in after the problem happened, The person who is in control of that is not me, So I can come and do what I'm trained to do, but there's a point where this is a God thing and not a me thing. Some people get frustrated with that and say, "Well, if that's him, why isn't he fixing it?" Man, I find peace in that, saying, if it didn't work out and I did everything I could do, I could wash my hands and think and say, I did everything I was trained to do, everything I'm called to do. If it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, it means it wasn't supposed to work out that way, and I can trust God, have faith that it worked out the way he wanted it to, whether I understand that or not. And some people really do struggle with that, but for me, over the years, I've learned to not always, but most of the time, able to let that go and man, it helps so much with not dealing with some of the vicarious trauma, not carrying some of that we tend to do sometimes.
Yeah, I think that I look at it as me being a conduit. I think it's much easier for me to just be a conduit of God's purpose for my life, and I don't have to, as you said, carry all that burden. Because I just want to be an instrument. I just want to be a tool that God can use me to whatever it is that He wants to do with me for His purpose. And I think that's also one of the biggest struggles that we have as firefighters is our identity and our purpose. A lot of times, if you introduce yourself, what is the first thing that you say is like, "Hey, this is Colby," and he is the firefighter the first thing that comes out of your mouth, or is it like, "Hey, this is Colby. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a preacher, he's a firefighter." And when we put those things again, our identity in our identity should be found in Christ. It's what the Bible says, right? My identity is to be found in Christ. He is my savior, my redeemer. And again, once you put your identity in Christ, you are able to be used as a conduit, as a tool to be used for his purpose, not your purpose, not my purpose, God's purpose for my life. And as I already said, my purpose is to love God and love people, serve God and serve people. So I do that through the fire service. Once I know that my purpose is to love God, love people, I can do that in the fire service. I can now put my identity in Christ, which is who is the author of my life, and I'm just going to live out his purpose through what I do. I'm not a firefighter who's living out my purpose to be the hero, who is to go out and save everybody. I'm just somebody who's being used as a tool, and I'm giving the opportunity to be a firefighter, to be a helper, and to be somebody who makes a difference in somebody's life on their worst days. And if we put our identity as firefighters, what happens once I'm done being a firefighter? What is your identity then? And that's also like some of the conversations that I was having with people as they were struggling with the job and the family and substance abuse. Like they put so much into the job, into being a firefighter, that once they are done, whether it was retirement or whether it was because they had to medically retire, they didn't know what to do. They lost that sense of identity, and so they lost their purpose. So what do you live for now that you don't get to be a fireman anymore? Nothing, so that's when people end up getting depressed, and they start abusing alcohol, drugs, and they lose themselves in their lives. So put your identity in Christ, find purpose in what God has called you to do in your life, and everything just is so much easier. There's a book that I read a few years ago by he's a singer songwriter, Mike Donahue, and it's called God's Life for My Will. It's kind of a weird title, but he at the end of the book he puts it all together, and he says, find the world's greatest need and the thing that you love the most, and put those two together, and that's probably your calling for your life, and that's probably the purpose that God has for you for your life. So just put your identity in Jesus, man, and find something to do is in his purpose, and that's gonna be a so much a more fulfilling life than whatever it is that you are trying to do for yourself.
Yeah. So priority number one is faith. Priority number two is family. So the fire service can be very difficult for families. We know the divorce rate among firefighters is really high. We miss kids' ball games. We miss birthday parties, all that kind of thing. What are some things that you and your wife have done to prioritize family? And so that she knows and your kids know that they come, maybe not first, but at least they come before the fire service.
The family definitely comes next after God, and my wife is my number one. Then the kids, they know that when I walk in the door, we play this game. The kids all like bum rush the door, and they try to hug me first, and I try to dodge and weave them and do a couple spin moves to then get to my wife, who is usually sitting on the couch with a cup of coffee, and then I can give her the first kiss, because if there was no wife, there was no kids. So she's definitely the focus of the family, and I think it also teaches the kids that mom and I have a good, a healthy, a secure relationship. When studies have shown that, like, when the parents have a strong and secure relationships, the kids are secure, and they do better in school. They grow up in a better environment, and they are more successful adults. They choose their partners based on what their parents' relationships was like. So I try to model that to my kids. I try to model a good relationship with my wife. I tell them, like, as a matter of fact, I just told them this morning that mom and dad are going to be going on a date for Valentine's Day. It's going to be a very nice and fancy restaurant, and they're not invited. We are going to eat steak and probably shrimp, and they're not invited. I'm going to pay for a very expensive dinner for their mom, and they're probably going to just have chicken nuggets or whatever. I don't care what they eat that night, but we are going to go on a very nice date, because it just, again, it's just teaching them how important that relationship is. So once they get married, once they find somebody who they want to live the rest of their lives with, that's what they want, right? But obviously, family time is so important, man. I love, for me, vacation is a big time. I try to take the kids out on vacation at least once, if not twice a year. We try to enjoy just some time together. And the best thing right now, we value family time so much that just a couple months ago, we decided to homeschool the kids because they spent a lot of time in school, and our kids are great students, man. They're all straight A students, but we just wanted more time with them. As I said earlier, I have a 13, almost 14 years old, and that's why I was messing up their age. So she's going to be 14, the next one is 12, and my boy is 10. And man, just like 4 years away, and my daughter's gonna be driving. She's gonna be, like, I mean, actually less than that. Just a couple more years, she's gonna be driving, and then college, and all of a sudden, like in less than 10 years, everybody, in less than 8 years, everybody could potentially be out of the house. So we wanted to spend so much more time with them and be intentional with what we're teaching them, what we're sharing with them, what we just want to spend more time together as a family. So I look forward to coming home and hanging with mom, hanging with them. We're now trying to start doing Bible studies together as a family. They obviously have their stuff that they do at youth and the kids ministry, but we're trying to just do that, spend some more time together as a family, reading the Bible together, praying together. It's super important, man. And the other thing that for family that is super, super, super important that we need to understand as firefighters is just it's just putting, not barriers, I want to say putting fences up, knowing the difference between this is family time versus this is fire family time. Because again, we love the job, man. We love hanging out with the boys from the firehouse. And it's not like I don't hang out with the boys, I do, but I got to make sure that that is not taking time away from my family. And it's not like I don't have to ask my wife permission to go hang out with the guys from the firehouse. What I am doing is I am asking permission to take time away from her and the kids for me to be able to spend time with the guys. So if I'm intentional and say, "Hey, this is the time that I have for family. Are you okay with me? Are you okay giving up some of that time so I can hang out with the guys?" Even if it's something just as simple as like we're gonna grab coffee, afterwards, or even if it's like I'm gonna hang out an extra 30 minutes and drink a cup of coffee with the guys at the firehouse before we all head home. So it's not about asking permission to hang out with the boys. It's more of like honoring the time that she's giving up, that the kids are giving up for me to do things outside of the fire department. And that goes along like not just hanging out, but like that's classes, that's conferences, that's overtime, all those things that we love to do in the fire service. You're giving up time with the family. I read something a while back that completely changed how I looked at the extra things that we do in the fire service, specifically to overtime. I already shared how I used to pick up overtime left and right, man. I was the guy that staffing wouldn't, I wasn't even signed up, and staffing was calling because they knew I wouldn't say no, right? And so one time my daughter looked at me, and this is years ago. She said, "Dad, why are you working again? You work so much, I don't even feel like I know you." And so that was like a big dagger in my heart, man, and it hurts because she was a little girl then, and I was like, man, I don't want to be that dad. And so I read that overtime is not so much how much more money you are making, but it's how much money are you getting paid to give up time with your family. So when I looked at it that way, don't get me wrong, working overtime is important. I think it's sometimes needed, but what are you gonna spend that overtime money for, or how much are you willing to get paid so you don't get to spend time with your wife and kids? So that changed me a little bit, and so now I have specific dates, specific times that I pick up the overtime, or that I go to a class, or that I go to a conference. Because at the end of the day, I'm honoring the time that I'm giving up with my wife and kids. So it's a way that I saw to again be respectful and be intentional with the time that I spend with them. Because then again, just I'm showing them, I'm modeling to them what I want my family to be like, but also what I want their family to be like one day. I don't want my kids to be workaholics who put work first and forget their families. So I never want to do that. So we have to model to them now what I want them to live out later.
So faith, family, and then fitness is third. You have fitness third, and I know you've got a interesting fitness journey because you were in the fire service. Like we talked before, how I was like, I don't know, 60 pounds heavier, 70 pounds heavier than I am now. But it was before I got in the fire service. It was when my wife was pregnant with my son, because I got out of breath tying my shoes, and I was like, I can't even play with my kid, so I've got to do something. And of course, the fire service was great because for me, that we're not always motivated. We have to be disciplined. Well, being in the fire service, especially becoming an officer, made me more disciplined in that, because I've had guys in the past who were the captain who, or the station officer, whatever, who we felt like as a firefighter that we couldn't go in and stay in as long as we wanted to, because he couldn't stay in with us. And I remember for years, the first couple of years I was an officer, I would tell people like my goal, I don't have to be in the same shape as a firefighter, but my goal is to be in good enough shape so that I'm not the reason they have to come out. But man, I was looking at our job description. I got called out. I mean, called out myself on this. About a year ago, I was going over job description with some of the guys at the new station I was going to, and I looked and I was like, it says the first thing in my station officer job description is all the physical roles and responsibilities of firefighter and engineer, and then station officer, different roles. I don't have to be in just good enough shape so that they can't come out. I have to be in as good a shape as them. Like I was like, man, I've been looking at this wrong the whole time. So fitness is really important in our career. Kind of walk us through your journey and how you view that.
My experience was the thing that changed for me was when I saw myself in a video, in a home video with my kids. I was watching this fat guy chase my kids around the pool, and I had no idea who that fat guy was. And my wife had to point it out. That fat guy is you, man. It's not some random kid, some random guy chasing the kids. That's you. And to me, that was eye opening. But not only that, man, I saw my blood pressure go up. My sleep was all over the place. My mood was all over the place. It was so bad that at one point my wife used to tell my kids, "Don't go around your dad when he gets home from work." And so I had to change, man. I didn't want to be that father that I couldn't have my kids around me because I was too tired or too cranky to deal with them, you know. And so I had to fix my sleep, my rest, And I'm gonna open up a little side conversation here. We know that as Christians how important Sabbath is, right? Our rest is so important. So my fitness journey starts with rest. It starts with sleep. So we need to sleep well. And here's the thing about the Sabbath. Our Sabbath, our rest is not to rest from work, is to rest for work. As I already said, man, we have a calling in our lives. We have a purpose in our lives. So when we're resting, we're not resting so we can just feel better, feel good. I'm rested. Now I can go to work. No, like you're resting because you got work to do, man. We got kids to raise. We got a wife to take care of. We got firefighters that are, as you just said, they're depending on us. I have work to do. I'm not resting so I can be, feel good and relaxed. I'm resting because I got work to do. So I think that if we just change our mindset on understanding what rest is or what Sabbath is, I think it's going to help our fitness journey. So start there. Start realizing that you need to rest not because you're tired, you need to rest because you got work to do. And so I dialed in my sleep, try to cut down on caffeine. And thank goodness I've never got into the energy drinks. So if you are one of those guys, fix your sleep, man. Sleep train yourself. I can't tell you enough how important sleep training is. Just like we sleep train our kids, we have to sleep train ourselves. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. I know it's hard. We have the fire service crazy schedule in there, but as much as you can, focus on your sleep. And you don't have to like all of a sudden become a fitness fanatic from overnight, but just start small, man. Maybe start walking on the treadmill, then go on a short run, and ask the person who lives at the gym at the firehouse. We all have that one guy that lives at the gym at the firehouse, right? He's done like 3 workouts already, and it's only noon. And like, dude, what are you doing? Go ask him. Go ask him a ton of questions. Go ask the resources. Now, you don't have to become a gym rat like him or her, right? You don't have to start buying all the supplements and getting all the crazy workout routines. Start small, but ask questions if you don't know, because I didn't know how to put workouts together. And then your fitness journey is going to start somewhere, and you don't need to start running a marathon, but just start small. And one thing that we forget, the fitness, the physical part is just part of it, right? We have a mental part of our fitness that we got to take care of. We need to learn how to be mentally tough, how to be resilient. So in order for us to do that, we got to do hard things. So the hard things for you may be just starting a workout. The hard things for you may be doing cold baths and training for a marathon. There's a part of our brain, the mid-cingulate cortex, that the more hard things that we do, the more hard things we want to do. It's kind of a cycle of, but that's where our resiliency comes from. But that's what we need to deal with as firefighters, with what we do every day, the things we see, the stress that we deal with. And then our spiritual fitness, man. Our spirit needs to be fed, so for me, again, going back to the faith. It's reading the Bible, it's spending some time with God. It's listening to worship first thing in the morning. One of the best thing that happened to our family during COVID was that since we didn't have anything else to do, we would just turn worship on in the morning, and we would just sit together in the living room, listen to worship, pray, read the Bible. And man, we've done that since COVID. It's so ingrained in us that many times if the kids ever get up early enough before us, they'll go downstairs and they'll go put worship on TV, and they're listening to worship before everybody else in the house is up. So just feed your feed your spiritual life, to spend some quiet time with God. And as I say, the first things first, like that's what I start my day with. If I put God first in my day, the rest of the day is so much easier. And I'm led into making better decisions, whether it comes with my fitness. Okay, now that I've got my God time done, now I can, I'm going to eat a healthy meal, and then I'm going to want to go to the gym. And it's just the little habits, right? If you ever read, man, I'm going to forget the things of Brene Brown, Power Habits. It's escaping me right now, but it's just the little things that you do throughout the day that makes you start making better decisions. And so just put the first things first, make the good decisions, and then you're going to want to, keep going and making good and better decisions throughout the day, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to your personal life, when it comes to your marriage and family. It's just coupling those things together to make sure that you're not just physically but mentally and spiritually healthy as well.
So your fourth F in your priority list is firefighting, and so I want you to tell me why you put that last, because some firefighters would say, "Oh, that comes first. Job comes first." Yeah, so tell us why you put it last. By the way, I agree with you. You should tell us why you put it last, and then kind of get into what you love about the fire service.
Yeah. So the firefighting comes last, not because it's less important. It's not because I think less of it or anything, but it just truly is where it belongs in my priority list. And the reason why it comes less is because when I get the first three things right, the firefighting, it's so much easier. I oversimplify the job by saying firefighting is all about pulling hose line and throwing ladders and doing searches. Like at the basic of it, that's what we do, right? That's our job. Obviously, there's a lot more technical stuff that we do, but if I learn how to take my relationship with God right, if my relationship with my kids are and my wife is set and it's doing well, if I'm taking care of myself, now I can take care of others, right? My job, as you just said, I have to be ready and prepared to do the things that I have to do for the job. I can't step out the firehouse and be ready to deal with somebody's emergency if my life is not right. You just shared earlier that you had an officer that at one point in his life he was dealing with a lot of things that on his home, that now whether you think that you can leave work at work and home at home, it comes to the firehouse with you. So if you're not if you fought with your wife the night before, you went to bed angry, and now the next day is at the firehouse, guess what you're going to do with everybody that you're working with? You're going to be snapping at them, you're going to be barking at them, you're going to be moody. It naturally happens. So if I start my day right, and spend some time in prayer, spend some time with God, give my wife a big old kiss before I have to leave, and pray for the kids before I walk out the door. I'm at the firehouse now, man. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm ready to face whatever it is that I have to face. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you put the first three things first, put faith, family, and fitness first, the firefighting is so much easier. It's not less important. I love what I do. I think everything that we do is important. There are definitely technical aspects to our job that need our focus, that need our attention, and sometimes it does come first, right? Again, it's honoring the time that you have to spend with your family. Say, hey, honey, I have to take this class, or I have to go to this conference, or I have to do XYZ for the fire service. Are you okay with that? Because yeah, I mean, I already spent enough time with her. I've already taken care of myself, and now I'm ready to, at least for a period of time, or for a day, or for a season, I can put those things that pertain to the job first, because I already took care of the other things. And so the firefighting part is less, not because it's less important, but because we need to put the first things first. We need to put the right things in the right order to make us be able to do our job and do our job well. And as I said, I mean, the title, the subtitle in my book is learning to put the first things first, to help us fall in love and stay in love with the job. Because if I put the job first, right, and now it's 10, 15 years in, as I already said, and now I'm out of love with the job. I'm grumpy because things are not right at home. People are going through divorces, or the kids are, because I didn't take enough time to spend with them. Now my kids are wilding out, and I have to deal with that. And now the calls don't stop, right? Whenever you're dealing with stuff at home, whenever you're unhealthy, whenever your relationship with God is not right, they don't stop calling 911. People still call 911. So now I still have to run the calls. I still have to deal with people at the firehouse with guess what? They are also having problems of their own in their own personal lives and their families. And so now you have to deal with the public. You have to deal with the people at your firehouse. You have to deal with your own issues. And how do you handle all that? If you don't have your right priorities, how are you expected to take care of other people's priorities? Right?
Mm.
It's the old like do as I say, not as I do. So it's our skills. It's not just about our fitness. We have to live out what we believe in. We have to live out what we want other people to live out. So if I want to be able to help somebody, I have to be in a good state of mind. I have to have my priorities in the right place. And so it just helps me put the right things in the right order. It helps me be able to have a clear mind and come into the job and be ready to whatever. There's going to be some weird stuff that's probably going to come up on the CAD screen that I'm going to have to respond to. I'm going to get a crazy email. Somebody's going to call me to deal with something. And so if I'm good, then I'm in a position where I can help somebody. And you have to have again a mission, a vision, and a goal for what it is that you want to do in the fire service. If you don't plan those things out, then you're just going through your 20 to 25-year career aimlessly, not wanting to do anything or not wanting to help anybody. You're just there, as we say, collecting a paycheck, which again, if that's what you want to do, more power to you, but you have a calling in your life. You have a purpose to do. So what is it? Do you have a mission and a vision and a goal, or are you just expecting and hoping that the vision for that your fire department has is enough to carry you through your career? It's a long 20 to 25 years, man. You have to have a good base. As the Bible says, you have to build your house upon a rock. And for me, those three things are the rock on which I build my foundation on, which allows me to serve people, which allows me to serve people in the fire service, not just the people outside that are calling 911, but the guys and girls at the firehouse. That's probably the hardest things that we have to deal with is the relationships at the firehouse. And how am I going to give somebody advice on what they're going through if my house is not in order? So again, just try to put the right things in the right order. You're able to do your job better. You're able to help other people better. You're able to live out the testimony that you have and share that with people and say, hey, look, I don't have everything right, man, but here are the things that I have done. Here are the things that I'm doing that is helping me be successful at the job.
I've heard it said before that you can't pour into others from an empty cup. And that's I man, I love that you what you said with the first 3 priorities because that's how we fill our cup. We fill our cup with our faith, we allow Jesus to which is all over scripture, the idea of my cup runneth over, right? That God fills our with his spirit, fills our lives, gives us purpose and joy. And those fruits of the spirit in Galatians 5, the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Who doesn't want more of all of those things? Whether you're a Christian or not, you want all of those things, right? So yeah, that fills our cup. And then our wives and our kids fill our cup as we fill theirs. Then the fitness is another cup filler. And now I'm ready to go out and pour into others' cups. I love that. I love that those are your priorities. What's your favorite part? I know we're getting close to on time here, but what's one of your favorite things about the fire service? What do you just love about it?
Man, I love the brotherhood. I still, as I said, I believe that this is the best job in the world. And I love that we just get to, man, we get to go hang out with our best friends every third day or whatever schedule that you have. It's like being in a sports team, going back to being in a football team or soccer team. Man, we get to ride rigs and run red lights, like I mean the kind of stuff we do, man, from like running into a burning building to going on like I'm part of the water rescue team, part of the hazmat team. Man, it's a cool job, and we get to do that with some of our best friends. Just the conversations that we have at the kitchen table, some that are appropriate, some that are not appropriate, some that are Christian, and some that we probably shouldn't be taking part of. I'll be honest, man. I have inappropriate conversations too, but it's just having those relationships at the firehouse, those relationships that go beyond the firehouse as well. One of the things that I remember distinctly from recruit school is one of the instructors said, look at the men and women next to you. Over the next 20 to 25 years, some of you are gonna be together. You guys are gonna be on each other's weddings. You're gonna be there when your babies are born. You're gonna be there when you guys retire. And man, I like when he said that. Like at first, it was just like whatever. He's just, you know. but like looking back at it now, and it's true, like I have gotten to be at people's weddings. I've had them at my wedding, and our kids grow up together, and seen, like just like we were growing up together. I was 22, 23 when I joined the fire service. I was a kid, so 18 years, like nearly 18 years later now, sometimes I look at the firehouse and it's like, man, how am I the responsible person in here? And it's crazy to think. The other day we have a new person in our firehouse, and they said that they were born after 9/11. To me, that blew my mind. It made me feel old. Like I think I grew a lot to like 10 or 15 gray hairs in my head. But it's like I've lived a long life already in the fire service, and it's crazy that I have a few more years to go. But man, I'm so excited to see, what else the fire department, the fire service brings, and the thing that I think is really cool, it's the internet has allowed the fire service to become so much smaller, because now I'm sitting here talking to you who's in Texas, and we're having a conversation where like 10, 15 years ago I would never know who Colby Rich was, and so having conversations with guys like you, like Daniel Alice from Faith in the Firehouse, and Derek and Paul from Forged in Darkness, Pat Long from Decom Project, Blake Stinnett from Next Rung. I mean, I can't name names. I mean, these guys are guys that now I am calling, texting on a weekly basis. John Velez from Tailboard Misfits. I mean, all these guys who are now friends and brothers that are, obviously have guys in my fire department too, guys that I went to recruit school, guys that I've worked in different firehouses, that, man, just these relationships are just so important to me. And those are relationships that I would have never thought about, having. As I said, I thought I was going to be a doctor. I never thought that I would be a fireman. And man, I'm so blessed to have known so many of these guys, and continue to be in relationship with you. And I'm sure there are going to be more people that I'm going to get to meet in the future. And just being able to have these relationships, share these moments, not just that, and just run calls with the guys and girls, man, it's fun. I mean, if you were to tell me 17 years ago that I'd be doing this, I would have never believed it. So I love it, man. And as people say, like, yeah, it gets tiresome to get up 2 3 times in the middle of the night, but that's when you have to push, and be, change your mindset and say, what am I doing this for? What is the reason that I'm doing this for? But then when you look across, and you see who you get to do this stuff with, it just makes it all better, man. It makes it a little bit better. It makes that 3 a.m. call a little bit less annoying or bad, and you enjoy what you do a lot more.
What is one of the best pieces of leadership advice you've received? And it could be fire service, it could be anything.
I'm going to bring it back to the fire service, and it is that the fire service will be here tomorrow. Meaning, the day that I stop doing what I'm doing, the fire service is not going to crumble. My fire department is not going to stop running calls. The very next day, they're probably going to fill my seat with somebody else, not because I'm less important, not because I wasn't good at my job. That's just because it's the nature of the job, right? Helton Pereira is not the God's gift to the fire service, and neither is Kobe Rich. So the days that we decide to hang our helmets, somebody else is going to be able to fill that seat. And I say that to say this, because you, just like we have a mission, and a purpose in the fire service, we have a mission outside of the fire service as well. I'll finish this by the way that I started. I'm a Christian. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I don't want to die a fireman. I want to die an old man telling old fireman stories. I have a purpose in living with my wife. I have a purpose in raising my children. I have a purpose with the people in my church. I have a purpose in my community, and I still have more goals that I want to, things that I want to do outside of the fire service. There's so much more to the fire. I love what I do. I truly do, Colby, and I feel called to do what I do. But it's not everything. It's like 20 to 25 years of my life. I didn't come into this world as a fireman, so I don't want to go out of this world as a fireman. So just come to that realization that your identity should not be as a firefighter only. One of my identities is being a firefighter. It's just not the first one, is not the most important one. And so when we realize that there's life outside of the fire service, it broadens our perspective, and it opens up our opportunities again, serve God and serve people.
Amen, brother. That's perfect. I can't think of a better way to end this conversation than that right there. Man, I want to thank you, Helton, for being with us today. Thank you for your passion for the fire service. Thank you for your passion for helping us remember what our passion should be. Fire service is one of them, but it doesn't deserve to be number one. Our fitness, our health has to come before that, our family before that, and then our faith number one. So, man, thanks for that great reminder. Thank you for the book and for all you're doing with your podcast. And I'm just going to call that ministry because that's what you're doing. You're doing a great ministry up there in Virginia and all over the place because, like you said, the internet gives us the podcast with the book, with getting to build relationships. I'm so glad that you reached out a couple weeks ago and we were able to connect. And I don't think this is a one time thing. This would be the first of many conversations we have. So, brother, I want to thank you for
Hopefully
being.
not.
I want to thank you for being here with us today. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And we'll catch you next time on Called to Lead.